Okay, let's start with the tenant. So what is Microsoft Azure tenant? So to understand tenant, tenant is nothing but a representation of your organization. Okay. So if you wanted to build any service or any virtual machines or any applications in Azure, first you need to get a tenant from Microsoft. So tenant, it is a representation of your organization. For example, let's say you're planning to buy a house. Okay. So what you will do, you will go to an apartment complex. Okay. So maybe that apartment complex might have thousands of houses in that complex. For example, this is a house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 1000 or whatever it is. Okay, so you will go to the apartment complex and then you will buy an apartment in that complex, right? So similarly, consider this apartment complex is a Microsoft data center. Okay, so inside this data center, you're going to buy a tenant. So this is similarly how you buy a house in a big apartment complex. So here apartment complex is nothing but Microsoft data center, and the house which you're going to buy, you know, for yourself, that is called as tenant. So tenant is a representation of your organization. So inside this Microsoft data center, there might be n number of customers having their own tenant. Okay. So for example, your company is ABC is having one tenant and another company is maybe having another tenant. So this is similar to the apartment complex where a number of people may have a number of houses in that apartment complex. So if you wanted to build anything in Microsoft Azure cloud, first you need to get a Microsoft tenant. So tenant, it is a place where you're going to deploy all your services, whether it may be a Teams, OneDrive, Microsoft Azure virtual machines, or your networks, whatever it is. Okay. So this is in a high level, we are calling it as a tenant. So first thing, you need to get a tenant before you buy, so before you build anything on Microsoft cloud. So let's say you're a company and you wanted to build some application in cloud. So you need to contact Microsoft. So Microsoft will give you a tenant for you. So once you have a tenant, then the second step is subscription. So when I say tenant, right, for example, this is tenant. Okay, so this is tenant. So inside tenant, you will have number of services. Okay, so you will have subscription basically. So let's see what is subscription. So subscription is the place where you're going to deploy your VMs or services. Okay, so you may have n number of subscription within a tenant. For example, you have a tenant for your Teams or Outlook or OneDrive or whatever it is. In general, we're calling it as Office 365. This is a tenant on which all your Office 365 application may come into picture. So then you may have a subscription where you're going to deploy your VDIs, workloads, etc. And then you may have another tenant where you're going to deploy your Dynamics application. Like Dynamics comes with its own tenant, so that is a, so then you may have another subscription where you're going to deploy your application servers, business applications, etc. So subscription, it is a place inside your tenant where you're going to deploy your workloads. Okay, so to deploy your VDIs or to deploy anything, first you need to create a subscription. So in order to put in a simple word, for example, let's say I have told that you bought a tenant, right? So this is the tenant. Consider this is a house you bought. So inside your house, you may have a bedroom, you may have kitchen, you may have toilet, you may have hall, etc. So similarly, in Microsoft Azure, consider this each, it is a subscription because each has its own space. So this is similar to subscription when it comes to your house. So let's say your hall or bedroom, etc., etc., you have a partitions right inside here. So similarly, in Microsoft Azure, inside your tenant, you'll have a subscription. In that subscription, you're going to deploy your workloads. When I say workload, it may be a VMs, virtual machines, network, storage account, etc. Or it may be a Office 365 subscription, which may have your Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, etc., etc. So this is in brief about subscription. Okay, so when it comes to your home, you will have something called door, right? The main door, which will prevent you from the prevent others from entering or any unauthorized access, right? So similarly, in your Microsoft tenant, you'll have similar identity and access management solution, which is called as directory service, which is also called as Azure Active Directory services. So every tenant will come by default with a directory service, which will help you for the identity and access management. Okay, otherwise anybody can enter, right? So this is the door which is created to prevent unauthorized access. So you have to allow only the persons you know, right, to your house. So similarly in Microsoft tenant, you will have a dedicated directory service, so which will allow or help you with identity and access management to get into your subscription or your resources whatever you deploy inside your tenant. So this is in a high level what is tenant and what is Microsoft Azure subscription. So we have covered tenant, we have covered subscription. So one important point about subscription is, for example, let's say you have a tenant. Inside tenant, you created one subscription for your VDI, another subscription for your other workload. Let's say you wanted to deploy some business applications. So you have created another one. And third one, maybe you have your Office 365 subscription, etc. So the billing which will happen at the subscription level. Okay, always remember. So it does not happen at the tenant level. So you will get a billing separately for each subscription. So this is the billing unit. Okay, this will also act as a billing unit. So all the billing whatever you consume, that will be built based on the subscription. So if you go to the subscription, that you can see, okay, my VDA, how much cost it incurred in this month. If you go to the another subscription, where you can see. So this is how billing will takes place in a Microsoft Azure space. So then we have a third one, which is a resource group. Okay, so resource group is nothing but, let's say you have a subscription, right? So we covered tenant subscription, done. We will come to the resource group. So inside your subscription, for example, let's say this is your subscription for VDI. Okay, so inside subscription, you need to create something called resource group. Resource group is nothing but a logical container to keep your resources. For example, you may have a workload, you may have a VDA which is created for the production. So you can put it in the production resource group. Then you may have a resource group for your non-prod workloads. So you can put that in a resource group called non-prod. So then you may have a resource group for your UAT or SIT. Maybe you may have a resource, let's say you may have a management server. If it is a Citrix, you need to deploy like FAS, all other, storefront maybe. So all those comes under management, servers, right? So you can create a resource group for the management servers where you can put all the things related to the management components in that particular resource group. So basically resource group is nothing but a logical container where you're going to keep your resources. Okay, so and make sure billing does not happen over here. Okay, billing is always occurs in the subscription which is above the resource group. So inside your subscription you will have a resource group. So here you will deploy all your VMs. So why we need resource group is, first one is the logical isolation. So you will separate all your workloads based on the resource group. And the second one is identity and access management. So based on the resource group, you can provide access to your admins or your IT admins, etc. For example, let's say I'll give you an example. This is a production resource group, and then you have a non-prod resource group. Okay, non-prod resource group. So let's say the admin xyz admin name is X. So he wanted to access only the production workload. So you should not have an access to the non-prod. So such isolation of identity and access management you can control over the resource group. For example, if you give permission on the subscription level, this user will have access on all the resource group. Okay, so in order to isolate, you can define the permission on the resource group level as well. For example, X will have only access to resource group production, and the user Y will have access only to the resource group which is belongs to non-prod, so that Your production admin cannot log into your non-prod to do any changes. Similarly, your non-prod admin cannot log into your production to do any changes. So such isolation is possible when you deploy your resources within a resource group separated by, production or non-prod, SIT, UAT, etc., etc. So this is related to the resource group.